I went into this movie having already eaten, yet I was still craving a Cuban sandwich afterward. I need to get one. What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you my review for Chef, which stars Jon Favreau, Sofia Vergara, John Leguizamo, Scarlett Johansson, Oliver Platt, Bobby Cannavale, Dustin Hoffman, and Robert Downey Jr., and is directed by Jon Favreau. Now, the plot follows Carl, played by Jon Favreau, a very well-regarded chef in one of the best restaurants in Los Angeles. But after getting into a fight with a food critic, played by Oliver Platt, over an unscathing review he gave to the restaurant and the fight spreading all over social media, Carl quits his job to pursue his dream of opening a food truck. Now, like my recent movie review for Begin Again, I am late on reviewing Chef, as this movie originally came out almost 4 months ago back in May, and I sadly never got a chance to see it. Until now, as my local movie theater recently picked this movie up, and I could not refuse putting off this movie any longer, as the concept alone for this movie got me interested, as Jon Favreau is going back to his indie roots, but I also took into account of how much I loved some of Jon Favreau's movies in the past, such as Elf, which is my favorite Christmas movie, and Iron Man, which is my personal favorite entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I was interested in what he would serve up this time with such a stellar cast. But is this movie suited in the garbage, or is it a tasty meal of its own? Let's run down the whole thing. Jon Favreau wrote, directed, and starred in this movie, and I can safely say that he definitely wrote himself a very good leading role, as I just loved his character in this movie, as he does have an unlikable personality to him on one end, but on the other end, he's just freaking hilarious into many of the characters he interacts with. And he also serves up some really delectable looking food in the process. And I'll get to the food later. But I'll just say that the leading role here is very, very well suited. Other members of the cast here fit the movie pretty well too, as Sofia Vergara, who is not only a wonder to look at on screen, but she plays Favreau's ex-wife with some much needed natural talent and diversity to the cast, seeing the concept of this movie and all. John Leguizamo and Bobby Cannavale play Favreau's co-workers with some clever lines given to them, and it is just a wonder to see all three of these guys together on screen. Oliver Platt played the very harsh yet hilarious food critic who does get into fights with Favreau as the movie goes on. Yet other members of the cast here do include Dustin Hoffman as Favreau's boss, Scarlett Johansson as Favreau's current girlfriend, and Robert Downey Jr. as yet another ex-husband of Vergara's character. And as much as I did like to see these three characters on screen, I felt they were underused, as they were just here for some much-needed star power that this movie needed to have, given that Favreau did work with some of these guys in the past. But even then, they did not detract from my overall enjoyment from the movie, as the one other notable cast member here is MJ Anthony. And I just love this kid actor, as usually for me, kid actors who are around the age of 10 or younger are hit or miss with me. And he just provided some much needed, diversity once again, like Vergara's character, but also some humor and some touching moments with Favreau as he is playing his young son. And it is also very cool to see how he teaches Favreau to use social media, yet it ultimately gets him into the fight. But I just think that this cast overall, even with some notable little detractors, really did not take away too much from this movie, as they are definitely one big aspect to this movie that I enjoyed. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is Favreau's return to his independent movie roots after doing a couple of blockbusters, and with a concept like this that he wrote himself, this is a definite win for him, as this is such a refreshing idea to see on screen with a small-time chef who does make it big in his restaurant, but then wants to go off pursuing other ventures. And I really did like how he interacted with other characters and see how the plot progressed, especially since it involves food. And let me just say, That's how you're going to be feeling once you see the food that's cooked up in this movie, as you definitely do not want to see this movie on an empty stomach. Or if you do make that mistake, make sure you're munching on something during or have a meal after the movie, as this makes you just want to gorge yourself in all of the deliciousness that is showcased here. And I myself was craving a Cuban sandwich once again, or wanting to serve up some steaks or briskets on the grill, as it just makes food look like such an art form, especially as it is shown in a movie like this. But even with that, this movie runs at a pretty nice pace at just a little under 2 hours, but that does mean that the ending for me was rushed and kind of forced, especially since it ends in a matter of only 10 minutes, with not all of the loose ends being tied down, and just having the ending being abrupt and boop. But that's not to say I didn't like it, as I did like it given that how much fun I was having watching all of this happen. I just felt that maybe I could have ended it with a more of a conclusive no, but then again, this isn't the worst ending I've seen to a movie at all. But even with all of this said and done, and looking at the complete package as a whole, this is such a warm, fuzzy kind of movie that leaves you feeling the right kind of emotions inside as it goes on and after it ends, as this is one that Favreau and the rest of the cast and crew should be proud of, especially since it is such a nice change of pace to all the other movies that we have seen this year, especially if you are as burnt out as I am with all the blockbusters. And if you haven't seen this movie and has still yet to, see it while you still can in the theater, as it definitely looks fine on a big screen. But even if you can't, this movie is going to be released on home media later this month, and you definitely can't miss this movie as the year goes on. My final thoughts on this movie are that even if I was taken out by some of the characters not being in the movie enough, or if the ending could have been done better, I just think that this is such an endearing piece of work that if Favreau continues to do movies like this outside of blockbusters, I'm all for it, as creative ideas like this need to be shown on film to show how much the medium can be very much artsy in an indie type of way, as the cast, the stellar humor, the delectable concept, and just the overall touching feel that this movie has with its lightheartedness and with the great message that it carries. I just think that this is a very, very likable movie, especially since independent movies like this have really been winning all throughout the year, and I cannot wait to see what else the genre holds as the year closes out. And recently, movies like this have been very kind to me, and just all the movies I've been seeing in general, as my final verdict for the third week in a row for Chef is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Chef, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.